Hi, good morning, and hello to all our viewers who are joining us online today from across the globe. I'd like to welcome our distinguished speakers and the delegates to this very interesting thematic session on the ESG, demystifying the myths and realities of ESG. As we have been listening in different sessions of this international conference on sustainability education, how our world is dealing with so many global challenges such as energy crisis or climate change and so on. So in this session, we are going to learn from our experts about the ESG framework or the environmental, social and governance framework, how the ESG can help accelerate the achievement of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and tackle these global challenges. So without taking much time, I'd like to introduce our speakers for the day. We have our chair with us, Mr. Praveen Garg, advisor. He's the advisor to the chairman, Mobius Foundation, and a former IAS officer and a special secretary with the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. And in our panel, we have Professor Meena Raghunathan. She is an ESG expert from Bengaluru. And then we have Mr. Arunav Sharma, CEO and founder, Rising Sun Energy, New Delhi. We have Dr. Aditi Mishal with us, Chief Sustainability Officer, Govardhan Eco Village, Maharashtra. And Mr. Ashok Imani, Principal, ESG, and IIF, and Mr. Spandan Shah, who will be joining us online today. And he is from ESG Research Foundation. So now I'd like to request our chair for his opening remark. Mr. Garg, you have the floor, sir.
A very good morning to all of you and the viewers online as well, and the esteemed, distinguished experts on the dais. Of course, I am not an expert. I've handled this subject a number of times, but not an expert that totally dedicated to ESG. So the theme is demystifying the myths and the realities of ESG. So myths and the realities. ESG is essentially a concept in the corporate world now. It has not moved to the civil service organizations or NGOs or other forms of businesses or small organizations. So it is a set of standards for evaluating corporate management of integrating social and environmental issues into business strategies. These standards are used by the potential investors also when they're investing in a particular company. And ESG is much talked about the acronym wherever you go, but many people don't understand what ESG is. We are generally guided by the corporate world right now on ESG issues, and we are guided by more or less by so far by the SEBI's circular and the SEBI's parameters, and the recent circular, or the last year the circular, which made top 1,000 listed companies by capitalization mandatory to publish their reports on ESG. And there are a number of parameters on that. So top 1,000 companies of listed companies on the stock exchanges would mean a lot of businesses. If we say it is capitalization is, it's normally the double the size of the economy. So if it is 60 lakhs or that, then top 10 will take away the 80% of the 80% of the industries of the capitalization, which means the capital invested there, employees there, and the businesses. It will take all the Tata's companies to that, all the Reliance companies to that, and I don't know how many Adani's companies are listed, but 2, 3 are at least listed. So that will take a, so you see, it becomes mandatory for them now to publish on ESG parameters. Now, ESG, as all of us know, stands for environment, social, and governance. Environment is not a small subject, and it is evolving every day, because Ministry of Environment and Forest and the CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board, as well as the state pollution control boards, they come out with circulars, they come out a lot of notifications, which have to be complied by different industries. It can be for iron and steel, it can be for cement. So they have to comply with that. So environmental issues are evolving for the industry. They can have their own parameters, but that in environment, there are two sets of the things they have to comply with. One is the mandatory, as per law, they have to do it. Second is they can evolve their own vision and say that I'm going to do this in next 10 years or 20 years. So it's evolving every day. It's not that it's a static idea, and once you have put your things together, it can run for next 10 years. For example, the end producer's responsibility, the concept which has recently come in last 2, 3 years. You have to, the producer of a car, producer of a television, has to see how the product, when it is no longer used by the consumer, and in Delhi we have life of a car only for 10 years. So unless you move it outside Delhi, and there again, I think the life is 15 years. So 10 plus 5, then you have to dismantle it, recycle it, and reuse it. So they have to have depots, they have to have collection centers. From there, they have to take it to their own factories and take out the parts which can be reused, which can be melted and reused again. So that these are the issues which are evolving in the industry. And environment is a big issue than air pollution by the industry, their disposal in the local rivers. There's so many things which are evolving. So is not a static concept, or any of these concepts are not static. Social is how you take your consumers who are in your vicinity, how you treat your employees, and the legal requirements also, how you treat your employees. The Minimum Wages Act, there is some factories regulation, then you have harassment, sexual harassment at the workplace, the Vishaka judgment of the Supreme Court. There are so many issues which are to be handled. Then how do you manage your communities? And in social, I would also include CSR, because CSR, 2% of the profits have to be flowed back to the society. So how you do that? Because what I'm noticing, that's my personal observation, that many of these funds are being used for their personal promotion. You will find lot of big corporate houses, the wife of the MD or the promoter has become the chairperson of their charitable trust, and the money is transferred to that charitable trust. So it's not really going out. That 2% is not. I think it will also come slowly into some kind of a professional, I would say, misconduct, and there will be some norms for that, who can be handling that fund. Otherwise, you're not really taking it out. So CSR is there, whether you spend money, how do you spend your money? And in public sectors, I noticed, I'm a retired man, so I can speak freely now. So that it is at times at the whims and fancies of because I was on the board of number of companies. In fact, I was CMD of Security Printing and Minting Corporation during demonetization time. So of course, I didn't let any officer or any politician to direct me how to spend the money. But I see a number of public sectors, they are being asked to go in a particular direction. So it's not a judgment which is taken with an open mind, or which is a rational judgment. So then the governance part is of course very important. It is becoming very important, of course, for the listed companies. I was also part of this Uday Kotak committee on the corporate governance. So we recommended a lot of things, and we said your chairman should be different and MD should be different. But it was not accepted by the corporate world. So it has been further extended. The time given for that has been extended. So governance is also a big issue, and the proxy firms which are coming in, which guide the investors. And there were few very well-known faces who had problem to continue as chairman of the company because these proxy firms ask the investors to vote against them. They are asking them to vote against their fantastic salaries. I was reading one of the chairman of a company which I also knew because I promoted him to set up an industry in Madhya Pradesh. When I was looking out in the industries department, I was surprised to see his salary, which had come in the newspapers. It was 50,000, no, 50 crores or something, 50 crores and 56 crores or something. So this is what is happening in the corporate world. So governance is very important. And still we have insider trading, which is happening uh, in India. And SEBI is, of course, catching them. They have their own surveillance systems. So they have their own data mining and red flagging, which happens every 24 hours after the trading happens. Because all the trading goes live on a real-time basis to the SEBI's data mining center. But they do it with a lag of 24 hours. So flagging does happen on that. And they try to correlate where the insider trading is happening. So this is in a corporate world setting. These are major issues, and anyone who is in the corporate sector has to think about it. And they're talking of the chief sustainability officer, but I think that's not enough. They need to have a chief compliance. Already they have a chief compliance officer, but he has to be supported by three arms now. What is, because environment is not generally can be the chief sustainability officer, but social is not that part. Social is part of the social, and governance is part of the HR function. So that has to be aligned, and it's going to be a big game changer. Now the issue is how SEBI is going to implement it, and how the companies are going to, make the reports. Who is going to read those reports? I am on committee of chartered accountants. Instead of chartered accountants, they have a board on sustainability reporting standards board. So they are coming out with the standards on that, and they do evaluate certain annual reports and say that these are the best. This is number one. This is number two or number three. But who is going to evaluate this thing 1,000 reports? SEBI doesn't. I used to have oversight as joint secretary capital markets. So ministry doesn't have the capacity. SEBI also doesn't have a capacity, unless some kind of a artificial intelligence or machine something is used. So it is going to be outsourced. I think like the chartered accountants certify the annual reports, there will be some group of people will be certifying these reports and then taking to SEBI, and SEBI can by few examples of by sampling, they can pick up few of the reports and do a detailed analysis of that, and then can impose penalties. They can stop. SEBI is the watchdog for these companies, and they can do a lot of things. I don't know whether they're doing enough. People can have different opinion that they are doing enough or not doing enough, or that people are getting away lightly. So that transparency is also required, whether they're doing enough or not, or they're not selective in what they're doing. So this is broadly in the corporate sector, the concept of ESG. It's a huge thing. I think that it's going to be, it will take at least 2 years to stabilize after once 31st March is over, and they have to create their own systems. Recently, of course, SEBI came out with a consultation paper again on green and blue bonds. Green bonds, when I was there in the ministry, green bonds, that first time the circular came out. And there have been green bonds issuances also by Railway Finance Corporation, NTPC. There has been rupee denominated bonds also on the international stock exchanges. So now they're talking of blue bonds also. So I was pleasantly surprised with the concept of blue bonds. Blue bonds are for the water related economic activities. And many of us, and even I didn't know till I had a charge of Department of Science and Technology, we have 75,000 square kilometers in the Pacific Ocean marked for us to do mining. And it's polymetallic nodules which have to be mined from the bottom of the seabed. Of course, environmentally it may, but you have to manage the environment also. So the nations are, they're competing with each other to do that mining. And first you have to do the exploration, whether what metal exists and does it exist enough to do a commercial mining from the seabed. So if somebody does that in due course of time, so the blue bonds would be for that, and blue bonds would be fisheries and these kind of activities, whatever related to water, one can issue the blue bonds. The issue with SEBI and with the corporate sector at times is the greening of the bonds or the greening of the activities. You pick up the money, funds for green activities, but it is taken to some other areas which are not so green. So again, you need somebody to take a oversight over them. I think the only few professions can't do it. So I think there's a lot of business opportunity for the people who are in this sector to have this kind of people. And I was pleasantly surprised recently, RBI also came out with a consultation paper on green financing, which is going to be a big thing. And I remember once I was in London attending G20 or some roundtable conference, that the delegation from China said that when they finance the industry, they have different rates from the banks. So the commercial banks have some reduction. They reduce the rates if it's for a green project or some greening activities there. More greener the project is, the rates are lower. Because I think we have to understand this way also that once you take up the green projects, they are very expensive to start with. The returns are long term. They does not give the return initially. So they need some kind of a handholding and support also. In the solar sector, in 2010, the tariff was 10 rupees per unit. And we were thinking of bundling, unbundling, mixing it with the conventional energy. Now it's touching 2 rupees, if I'm not wrong, 2 rupees. There was so much of competition. They're cutting each other's throat on that 2 rupees. And there are certain governments which say that we will not honor our PPA, power purchase agreement of that time, which gives you 10 rupees or 12 rupees. So it may create, so that handholding is required whenever we are talking of green bonds or greening of the activities or environmentally related issues, because it will have long-term returns, but not in short term. And I was reading certain reports that ESG bonds are highly favored by a segment of the investors. So many of us would prefer to invest in an ESG bond. And recently, SEBI has permitted mutual bonds, mutual funds also to have ESG bonds, a bundle of that or basket of that. So this is, I think I can go on speaking, but I will conclude this thing. And yesterday I attended one session, and that was on ecosystem restoration. And I was pleasantly surprised and very happy to hear the other participants. And we discovered a bee man of India, and who was how to protect the bees and the pollination which is done by the bees and so many issues. So I'm very keen to listen to the other participants. I wish that it's going to be very interesting and very knowledge enhancing for all of us who are participating in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, for your statement, and thanks for sharing your thoughts about the ESG and the role of SEBI. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Prashant. I'm the Partnerships Coordinator with CorpStage, Singapore, and a former United Nations advisor on Sustainable Development Goals in New York. So now we are going to start round one. So let me just brief you about this round. It will be a shorter session. This round will be a shorter version. And I will ask each panelist one question, and question will be the same for everyone. And I would request to share your opinions and thoughts in a couple of minutes. And then when we go to round two, it will be a longer version. So starting with round one, my question is, are ESG and SDG concepts independent or interdependent of each other? So starting with Mr. Aruna.
Yeah. Hi, everyone, and thanks, Prashant. So I think I feel that ESG and SDGs are very much interdependent on each other. In fact, the G of SDG defines ESG, right? The goals which are set in the Sustainable Development Goals, they are further defined in ESG. So ESG actually lays out what all needs to be done. The 17 goals which are defined, they are covered in the E and S and the G. And since ESG and SDGs, these are the new buzzwords and everyone's talking about them, and new regulations, like sir explained, are being issued by RBI and the government and SEBI. So I think it's still early days for the industry to understand, but I think the framework is on the right track with the clearly laid out, I think, the goals which need to be achieved by the companies, by the corporates. And I think they definitely go hand in hand and will go hand in hand moving forward. I think ESG brings clarity to SDG. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Arnav. Very interesting to know. Now, Mr. Imani, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ashok Imani, working with NIF, National Investment and Infrastructure Fund. And for last 2.5 decades, I've been in environment, social, occupational health, safety related aspects, looking at all these. And as you have rightly said, Arnav and Prashant, ESG and SDG are linked. These are this is the evolution which is happening, and over the years it has been panned out in different methods and methodologies which are trying to connect the essence in ESG and the sustainability. So sustainability is nothing but, as everybody knows, it is based on the pillars of economic growth, environment, social, and the community in which it has to be implemented. So we cannot isolate and see sustainable development by not addressing any one of them, and it has to be looked in an integrated manner. And when we look at ESG in investment, especially like all activities which are taken up in a project or an investment, it ultimately on the ground, how it is linked to say environment or social, or over the years, like governance was there, but it matured. The maturity has arrived over the last couple of years after the 2007 debacle, Lehman debacle, which has pointed out how the things have to be looked at. And ESG in the environment, like in the investment environment, it clearly asks for identifying the materiality, which if you miss out, then it will be like a disaster for the investment. So the linkages which I can quickly bring out, I'll take two examples like SDG goal on decent work and providing environment for the workers, which is SDG goal number 8. Whereas like if you look at the spectrum of standards which are available, and if we compare it with the gold standard which is put up by International Finance Corporation through their environment and social performance standards. So in PS2, which is performance standard number 2 on worker management relation, it is very clearly articulating, like if you are not taking care of your workers, it is going to impact your business. And that's the linkages, that's the linkage which these 17 goals have put in. So who cares wins the UN initiative in 2005 on like the entire in terms of bringing the ESG. The word ESG was coined in that initiative only in 2005, and at that point of time, about assets under management were about 6 trillion USD, and now in this point of time, it is about 45 million trillions of asset under management. So see the emphasis which has happened. And in my like 2.5 years, 2.5 decades of working with the various entities, developers, sponsors, the entire like in terms of acceptance to addressing the ESG has evolved. Yeah, and this has evolved for the betterment, right? And the SDGs are topping on that. Like you can really look at in a holistic manner, and with 169 targets which are there, we can certainly work on that. So that's the point which I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. And now I'll go to Spandan, who is joining us online. Spandan, can you hear us?
Yeah, we can. Hi, thanks, Prashant, for having me, and thank you everyone for taking the time to attend the session on on a Saturday morning. Greetings from London. Apologies, I could not be there with you in person. So, I mean, at the end of the day, kind of both SDGs and ESG have the same kind of objective of addressing the environmental and the social challenges we face today to reach towards an ideal kind of sustainable society. There are some subtle differences in that. From my perspective, I think the stakeholders involved from an SDG perspective are quite large, including countries and companies. It also kind of looks at general public and individuals like you and I. ESG in a way primarily applies to the business community and corporates. But at the end of the day, kind of for me as well, I'd echo what Arnav and Ashok has just said, that they are interlinked and kind of interdependent. Essentially, for me, two sides of the same coin, because SDGs, while we've got to meet those 179 targets by 2030, and governments have agreed to it. In a way, corporates will have to work towards contributing and achieving these, right? Yes, we as societies, as communities, individuals will play a part, but predominantly it will be the corporates and the business landscape which will have to work towards improving their operations, which in turn will contribute towards taking us a step closer to those targets that we have to achieve by 2030. The aim of ESG in a way is to encourage kind of companies to improve their environmental and social credentials, to manage risks linked with what Ashok just mentioned about capital markets, investments, and kind of engagement with various stakeholders to generate kind of value for the business. And the more you focus on ESG, the better value that you can generate for your organization, which in turn integrates with the companies within a region, within a country, and slowly and gradually adds up to the global focus on the SDGs, and takes us, as I said earlier, a step closer to meeting those 17 goals and 179 targets, by 2030. So from my perspective as well, kind of, both SDGs and ESGs are essentially two sides of the same coin, aimed at making societies and communities a lot better and a lot more sustainable going forward.
Thank you very much, Spandan, and I hope you are doing fine in London. And
all good,
now,
yes. Slightly early for me on a
Yeah.
Saturday morning, but it's always good to get up and talk about ESG and getting together with like-minded people here. So all
Yeah.
good.
Thank you. Now, Professor Raghunathan, you have the floor.
Thanks, Prashant, and wonderful to be part of this. Thank you for the context, Mr. Garg. That was really quite. For me, SDG and ESG, obviously, they're very similar. One can be mapped to the other. One provides the context for the other in the sense that I think SDGs are a practical way for businesses to operationalize these. ESG becomes the vehicle for SDGs to be operationalized by businesses. But where I see a very fundamental difference is from where they arise. SDG has a normative ethical stand of its own. It aims to better the world environmentally, societally, for people, make a better world. ESG is more instrumental. It is, how does my business do good? How do I de-risk myself? By taking care of the environment, society, and governance. And I think that is a huge difference. So they may look the same in operation, but where they come from, I think are different. And that's okay. I'm not passing a value judgment on it. Business has to be practical. It has to de-risk itself. It has to take care of itself. But therefore, I do not see the two as so very close. It may look close when you see it in operation, in terms of the actions that people take. But is it coming from the same place? I'm not so sure. So, but that's a reality. We must accept it. And if it's all adding up to the good, great. We need all of it. We need the normative stand, which in theory talks about a better world, and the ESG stand, which says this is how we will make it better. So for me, that's the difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Dr. Aditi, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think all of them have set an exact ground when it comes to the context for understanding ESG and SDG correlation. But I'm a teacher at heart, and I have to think of the student who will be scoring the least, whether that person is able to understand what ESG and SDG is. And in that sense, I would say that would you like to just help with the laptop? There are a few things.
Please feel free to come here.
If you can also operate from there, is fine. Just the push button, the forward button. So when it comes to SDG, by the time people were just thinking with the full form of SDG, ESG has come as another bomb, and it's difficult to understand what then ESG is. So going further, this is the conference which happened in 1949 at Lake Success at New York States. And this particular conference was, landmark conference when it comes to a lot of things started moving towards environmental sustainability, social sustainability, and economic sustainability. It's almost 2/3 century, and still we are far away from the sustainable economy. Why I'm saying this? Can we go a little further? So as you can see the graph of carbon emissions here, we have a lot of development, and thanks to development that we are all here enjoying beautiful life, very decent, luxurious life, even affordable for the middle class family which is staying in India. But it has all come with a cost. Environmental price tag of 10,000 years. And you can clearly see with the graph out here. So in 150 years, we have utilized what many centuries have not been able to utilize. Can we go a little further? And not just this, we are losing UK size forest every year, which is huge. A little further. problem is that the same pollution is also causing and impacting children. Yeah, it is taking lives of millions of children every year. And when we talk about the pollution, it's not just air pollution, it's also the plastic pollution, which is, bringing more problem. Can we go a little further? So we eat 1 credit card worth plastic every week. And this is microplastic, and it's everywhere. It's in the air we breathe, it's in the water we drink, it's in the food that we eat, it's everywhere. So when we talk about all of these complex challenges and the kind of, the next slide, please, the quantum of the change, what is required to overcome all of these problems is, we're talking about changing attitude and behavior of 7.5 billion people from 200 countries, speaking more than 7,000 languages. So when the SDGs are being discussed, 17 sustainable development goals, we have to understand the quantum of change that we are talking about. Now, why separate ESG is required? Like, for example, if I say, she is little less taller than him, and he may be little less taller than him, and he may be equally tall to him. Yeah, what I'm doing is a qualitative analysis here. And that is exactly many of the companies, when they were they're publishing their sustainability reports and all, the input came qualitative. But people were asking, is enough sufficient? Or whatever they are doing, is it really sufficient towards the acceleration towards all of these goals? And there exactly came ESG, which started quantifying and putting down, parameters in quantities as to how the sustainability practices are being done, and how is the benchmark being set? Yeah, what is the standard that they have to follow? Which are the companies which would be rated better than the others? And there exactly for quantifying ESG was put into picture. Yes. Yeah, over to you now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aditi, for telling us the difference between the ESG and SDG. So we are done with the first round, and thank you once again, all the distinguished speakers. We will start round 2 now. And since our distinguished speakers represent different backgrounds, so this round is going to be a little bit in depth, and please feel free to engage in in-depth discussions at length. So, and also one point, I will ask each panelist a different question, and then they will have a suggested time limit is like 7 to 10 minutes. So starting with Aruna, what are some of the myths about the ESG framework, and whether ESG considerations have any negative impact on the financial performance of a company? Over to you.
Yeah, so I think as far as myths are concerned, I think the biggest myth is that following ESG reduces financial profitability. So in fact, my company's experience has been exactly opposite of that, and I can share that with you. So my company, which is Rising Sun Energy, we are in the business of developing renewable energy projects. So we develop utility scale solar power projects. And even though we are contributing in a big way in carbon emission reduction, supplying clean energy, but when we talk about the profitability part, when initially we were working on our projects, our primary source of revenue was the power sale, which we realize by selling the power which we generate. And but slowly, I think with ESG coming in, there were certain parameters which were being looked at, which helped us in generating these carbon credits. So just to explain, so what happens is there are these certification agencies, global agencies, they come and do a certification and an audit of, say, your project, and they have their own parameters. They try to calculate so the number of carbon credits which or rather carbon emission which we have reduced corresponds to, say, one carbon 1 CER, which is carbon credit, and these carbon credits are tradable, saleable, and there are certain benchmarks which have to be met by countries, by global corporations who are responsible for carbon emissions. And in order to reduce them, they are bound to buy these carbon credits, and they end up buying these carbon credits from companies like us. And the market has really evolved. Rather, I would say it in the last 1 year, it has just exploded. And the reason is that there is a huge demand for carbon credits in the market, but not enough supply. So just to give you a perspective, we got ourselves registered. I know it's a slightly lengthy process to get your company registered. You have to go to UNFCCC, then there are certain audits and all that happens. But once you cross that, then it is much easier. And now there are many such organizations globally, like there is GCC, World Carbon Council, who started doing this. And so once you are registered and you get a go ahead, then for every carbon emission, for every ton of carbon emission saved, you get a carbon credit. So now this carbon credit, around 2 years back, we were able to trade for something around 15 to 20 cents per carbon credit, and roughly 100 units of clean energy generated gives me one carbon credit. So I have my projects are large scale utility projects, so we generate anything around say a million minimum, a million, 2 million clean energy units every year. So the carbon credits which we were able to sell 1.5, 2 years back for 18 cents, 20 cents a dollar for one carbon credit. To last year, when I did my last trade, I sold these carbon credits for $7.5
Wow.
per carbon credit.
Amazing.
So in terms of profitability, this directly adds to my bottom line. And these new revenue stream, which was I mean not accepted by a lot of government institutions earlier, sir, and a lot of banks and lenders and investors like NIIF are now starting to believe in this much more. And in my last financial year, 8 to 10% of my revenue came from the selling of these carbon credits. I think it could have been much more. We became a bit greedy because we thought the price is going up, so let us hold them for a bit longer. So I think it would have contributed much more than 8 to 10%. But that is where we close our last financial statement. So I think our experience has been that if you follow I think ESG and you are helping by reducing carbon emission, you are helping in having a social impact on the ground. I think our projects, since they are located in far-flung areas in, say, Rajasthan, where the nearest town is like 60-70 kilometers, so there we have I think done a decent amount of social impact, and all these things together contribute in generating these carbon credits, which help in improving the profitability of your company. So I think my experience has been exactly the opposite. If you follow ESG, it makes your company it adds to the financial returns of your company and makes your company more profitable.
is very specific to your industry.
Yeah.
So it is becoming profitable for your industry. But suppose it's cement, it is iron steel,
Yes.
or it's a pure mining company.
Yes.
So initially, that's my understanding, but look for an answer. Initially, they have to do a lot of investment to make it green and to comply with the standards. The returns will come over a period of time. So initial years may be impacted. So would you like to respond to that?
Yeah. So I think, sir, my experience has been that it's not very difficult. It might take some time. So, for example, if it's a mining company or if it's a cement company, or even it can be as simple as a farmer planting a tree. If you can quantify and prove that by planting, say, 100 trees, I have reduced this much carbon emission, you might be able to generate carbon credits and trade these carbon credits. And people are doing it. So for a cement industry or a mining industry, if you can quantify and prove that you've used better material or you've used better mining techniques which help in bringing down the carbon emission and in some way bringing down the pollution, if by using superior technology or more environmental friendly technology, if you can quantify and prove that it helps in reducing carbon emission, you will be eligible to generate carbon credits and then ultimately trade them as well.
So the answer is that industries will have different kind of a time frame.
Yes.
In industry like yours, returns are very quick. But in other industries, it may be 2 years, 3 years down the line, but it's going to be profitable. There's no doubt on that.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you very much, Arnav, for your valuable response, and thanks for sharing about your company. It's great to know what it is doing in the field of sustainability. So my next question is to Spandan. Are there globally recognized standards on ESG reporting, and how companies are rated on their ESG performance?
Thanks, Prashant. I think ESG reporting is becoming increasingly important as there's new regulations being introduced. Sir mentioned SEBI's requirement on the top 1,000 companies to disclose data through business responsibility and sustainability report. Here in the UK, there's similar legislation being planned, and globally as well. A lot of jurisdictions across the world are introducing these. There's also pressure from other stakeholders like us as customers want to see where our chocolates and our clothes and a lot of things that we buy and use on a day-to-day basis are coming from. So there's increasing pressure on companies, nevertheless, whether they are mandated, are publicly listed or otherwise, to disclose ESG data in some form. But it is particularly looking at the global landscape, it's quite a lot of different standards and frameworks. Everyone kind of likes to use the term an alphabet soup. So that's what it is. There's multiple standards and frameworks out there when it comes to kind of global reporting on the ESG side of things. There's definitely some of the key ones which are being used widely and recognized globally. But kind of just for the sake of understanding, I'd bucket all of these into four kind of categories in a way. Some of the standards are primarily outward looking. So essentially, their companies have to disclose what is their impact on the environment, on the society, on the communities. And within this, we've discussed UN Sustainable Development Goals already, but they fall within this category. You then have one of the other kind of oldest reporting standard, which is called Global Reporting Initiative, the GRI. You then have a kind of carbon disclosure project, which again focuses on the environmental, the forest, and the water side of things. And then in India, kind of the SEBI BRSR requirement is predominantly outward looking. The second category is inward looking, where you have the companies disclosing the impact of the external environment on their operations. So there, the companies have to disclose, okay, what is the financial impact if the global temperatures were to go up by 2% or 4% or 6%, and so on, and your policies, strategy, and kind of the governance framework in place to mitigate the negative impact of these externalities. Then you've got some sector specific guidelines. So, solar, off-grid solar sector, you've got GOGLA. Then you have UN principles of responsible investment, which are primarily kind of focused on the financial services, the asset management sector. You've got GRESB, which is kind of looking at large scale real estate as well as infrastructure projects. And then you've got a few like the EU SFDR, etc. Again, looking at some specific industry sectors. And within the other bucket, the fourth one is where I would classify something called science-based target initiative. It's not necessarily kind of a reporting framework, but that's something that you can abide by if you want to get your BH kind of goals certified by a third party. And then you've got the greenhouse gas protocol, which is a guideline towards how do you calculate your carbon footprint and hotspots on where you can focus on to reduce and become more greener. So there's some overlaps between all of these. But there is no one size fits all, right? So companies will have to assess their business requirements, their commercial needs, the stakeholders that they want to engage with, and accordingly kind of choose either one or a combination of all three to kind of disclose their ESG reporting. I've seen over the past couple of years a lot of Indian companies, particularly large listed companies, kind of disclosing or publishing a standalone impact report where they disclose matrix which cover obviously the requirements of erstwhile BRR, which is the business responsibility report, now renamed as BRSR. But they also look at GRI or TCFD as some of the frameworks to make sure that they are disclosing quite a comprehensive list of ESG matrix and parameters. Kind of moving on to the second leg of your question around ESG ratings, I think again they are also becoming quite relevant, particularly as a lot of capital markets across the world are slowly and gradually linking deployment of their funds, investing in companies linked to ESG and sustainability parameters and matrix. But like with reporting, there is no kind of consistent kind of landscape or a methodology or an approach to ESG ratings. The top ESG rating agencies globally, like the Sustainalytics, Dow Jones Sustainability Index, Bloomberg or ISS ratings, etc., have their own internal kind of approach and methodology on how you would rate a particular company on their ESG kind of scoring. And therefore, you might see different, same company being ranked differently if you were to look at some different indices and rating agencies. This is a slightly tricky situation because as users of financial statements, you or readers of the impact report or ESG data, you want to have some consistency. Okay, this company is doing well across, and there's no room for any judgment either in a good or a bad way. And governments are kind of waking up to this slightly gray area that is right there out there in the market right now, and they are trying to kind of look at transparency, consistency, and kind of improved oversight on the rating space through some regulations and new laws. The Indian government, SEBI, as well as kind of the government in China have recently, in the past couple of months, or in India it was somewhere at the end of last year, but the government in Japan have introduced kind of proposed legislation out for public consultation to kind of aimed at to regulate these rating agencies going forward. So in a way, they adopt a standard and a consistent methodology while looking at different companies. So it's easier for the users of these scores to assess and make informed decisions, either when it comes to investment, either when it comes to purchasing stocks or anything. So in the long term, I believe the trend will be towards convergence of either when it comes to a standard kind of ESG reporting framework or a standard kind of ratings methodology. But I think we are a bit kind of, that is a further down the line process. We have seen some consolidation happen within the reporting space. So last year, the IRRC, which is the Integrated Reporting Council, got merged with the erstwhile SASB, which is a predominantly US focused standard, which then became Value Reporting Foundation. And earlier this year, Value Reporting Foundation not earlier this year, just last month, Value Reporting Foundation got merged with the newly announced ISSB, which is the International Sustainability Standards Board. So I think there will be some sort of a consolidation and convergence happening towards a standard disclosure framework as well as a rating methodology. But I think that's a bit more in the medium to long term. So, but on the other hand, for companies to kind of just look at a better rating, essentially two things will have to be considered. A is start disclosing data, either when it's mandatory or on a voluntary basis as well, and disclose data across multiple and kind of wider set of parameters. Like with what we've seen, even as kids, essentially you've got to show improvement in the data across the parameters, which then as a combination will potentially lead to improved rating, whatever the methodology you adopt, which then has its own advantages of potentially accessing a wider set of responsible capital, maybe improved brand image, and overall kind of a combination of multiple aspects to lead to better value creation for an organization. Yeah, so at a high level, kind of a 30,000 feet view of the global reporting landscape, as well as my thoughts on the rating side of things. But yeah, any questions? Open to that.
Thank you so much, Spandan, for your detailed analysis and for telling us about the ESG rating and the standards. And yeah, we will have question and answer session later from our audience, and we'll come back to you. And by the way, sad news came from London the other day about the passing of the Queen. So rest in peace.
Yeah, it is. I mean, everyone's talking about, obviously, as a head of the state, even in terms of the figurative role, she played quite an important role in the society and keeping things together. So yeah, but hopefully the transition is in place. So
yeah,
rest in peace.
Thank you once again, Spandan. Now my next question is to Professor Raghunathan. As we have been listening in different sessions and also in our discussion now, ESG is kind of a buzzword. I think Arnav also mentioned that. So how can we ensure that it is a value that is internalized and not just a fad?
That's quite a profound question, because these days we are, as he said, in an alphabet soup. In India, a very important component of that alphabet soup is CSR. Till now, companies were like, "Kya karu, CSR, 2% spend nahi kiya. My God, will I go to jail?" That was the situation. Into that, sustainability reporting. Into that, now ESG. Businesses don't know what is hitting them, actually. I mean, this is taking them so much out of their comfort zone. Previously, they thought, profit maximize karo, give a good dividend, get on with life. And that was this thing. But now, I think fundamentally, if we are to ensure that all of these are not fads, and more acronyms will come in, more ratings will come in, more consultants will come in, each with their own approaches, each with their own agendas. I think the important link is education. This is an education conference. I want to bring it back to that unless we internalize certain values, all of these will become fads. They will come and go according to the fashion, where the funding is, what catches whose fancy. But fundamentally, what are we saying? We are saying that business has to be a responsible citizen. If you are to be a responsible citizen, you should not transfer your problems onto the external environment. You cannot put a cost on the external environment and make a profit at their, at their cost. So you can't throw out your waste. You can't take resources without being accountable for it. You have to pay true cost in an environmental sense. In a social sense, again, you cannot externalize. You cannot displace thousands of families and build a factory and say, I'm very happy because Ashok and I have had so many discussions on this. You cannot say, I paid them the compensation, now leave them. Abhi डूबते हैं मरते हैं क्या फर्क पड़ता है, मैंने तो I've ticked the box. Similarly, governance. Integrity is integral to governance. What do we mean by governance? Be true, right? So these are values which you do not pick up as a manager at IIM or any other school. These are values which are taught and internalized as a child. And I think these kind of things have to be stressed in school. We talk about environmental education, and I spent 20 years of my life in CE. We always saw that there is a very big disconnect. We say there is a ladder in this learning. There is awareness, there is attitude, there is knowledge, there is skill, and then there is action. And usually we stop at knowledge. Everybody has all the answers. Who translates that into action is the big and critical question. Action, which then becomes a habit by repetition. So unless we inculcate these things in children, these will become fads, and these will remain fads because I am forced by the external environment to do something. I have to respond to the external environment. I'm not doing it out of a belief that it is the right thing to do. So environmental consciousness, this respect for the environment, this respect for sustainability, this respect for stakeholders or people, that I cannot pollute somebody's river, that I cannot put stuff into the air which people in the community are breathing, that I cannot be unfair to my employees, I cannot pay less and take away bonus and give dividend. So this whole movement to the triple bottom line, and I found that discussion very interesting. When you say business is doing well, should we be measuring only in terms of profits, or are we talking about the optimized TBL bottom line? So to move people from one framework to another, it is education, education, and only education. And the other link which I'm missing, what I do in personal life somehow doesn't get translated into professional life. I may be very respectful of the environment in my personal life. I'll switch off fans, but the decision I make as a manager is not reflecting that because something else is driving it. So personal values and professional values have to come together. Values are values. I have these values. I do not put on a different hat when I walk into the office. So that kind of dissonance has to go to my mind. So I would say whether it is sustainability, whether it's respect for stakeholders, whether it's integrity, because you cannot be, very honest as a person I will not pay a bribe. I will pay my traffic fine. But when I have to get a, paper moving somewhere, arey, consultant ko de do, wo fix kar dega. So that's a huge dissonance, and that's what governance is. So, how are we going to put these into children, put these into our students, whether in colleges, whether in management schools? Pramod gave a very scary example yesterday when he was quoting from his research study, where he said, I am Raipur, I think students, most of them did not know the difference between quality of life and standard of living. So if you have not internalized that and you're still thinking that our pursuit is money and the standard of living, how are you going to actually move the mindset which makes it permanent? Otherwise, believe me, it will only be a fact. Ek aur alphabet soup aayega kal, we will all run after that. Because I have no option but to run after that as a businessman if I have to survive. So I think education is the answer to moving away from fad into people making the right decisions because they are right decisions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Professor. And yeah, we agree with you, what you just explained to us. And my next question is for Dr. Aditi. Since you have already presented your slides about your eco-village, and we are really happy that it is doing a great work in the field of SDGs and implementing all the SDGs. So now my question is kind of related to SDG 17 on partnerships and collaboration. So we would like to know from you, how can we effectively establish a partnership between the ESG community and other stakeholders about realizing our common agenda 2030, which contains the sustainable development goals, and moving together towards a sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prashant, for this very important question. And I can tell you that GEV is a very unique case study for that matter. Why it is unique? Because we participate in UN discussions, because we are accredited by UNEP and we are accredited by UN ECOSOC, CBD for that matter. But at the same time, we are NGO. We are implementing all of these policies which have translated into strategies, which have translated into the operational programs, and we are seeing practically how the change is happening on the grassroots level also. So we have that particular range available when we are talking about Govardhan Eco Village. And moreover, within the campus also, we have a lot of sustainability initiatives which we are looking at. Can we go a little further? These slides. Yeah. So with ESG, welcome to the world of accountability. Now, when I'm saying I'm presenting the case study of Govardhan Eco Village as an NGO, and here I beg to differ that it's not just the corporates who are looking at ESG, but even NGOs are being asked as to how they are performing when it comes to the ESGs. And we got particularly a query from one of the funders, the sponsors, that have you got the ESG rating done, and how has the performance been? Of course, we do tremendously well when it comes to environmental and social and all of those stuffs. But I'm sure not particularly with GV, but a lot of NGOs struggle when it comes to governance. Yeah, when it comes to the internal, HR policies and strategies and so on and so forth. So I'll be sharing the case study of Govardhan Eco Village from this particular point of view, and also talk about partnerships and collaborations, because when I say we did the work, actually Pyramids have done the work, Reliance has done the work. It is Apar Industries which has done the work. It is Mafatlal Group which has done the work. We have been working on behalf of all of these organizations, actually what we are doing at Govardhan Eco Village. So it's an interesting, so side by side, I also would like to entice you with the photographs of Govardhan Eco Village, as rightly mentioned by someone yesterday, that it has to be aesthetically also beautiful. So sustainable is beautiful. Yeah, it's powerful, and it's also affordable. So I would also be discussing about not only the ROI, I'll be talking about EROI, that is environmental return on investment. I'll be also talking about the social return on investment as we go further with the initiatives. So we contribute to all 17 UN SDGs. Now, we didn't do it deliberately, but that was the need of the place that we were working with. We work at Palghar. It's a tribal dominant population in Palghar. 7 talukas out of 8 have a dominant tribal population there. And when I say it's not just the particular tribal population, I would also mention that the challenges are also unique when it comes to the district being tribal dominant population. So the challenges that we who still have income something like 25,000 per annum, which we can't even imagine how a family can survive with such meager income. But of course, let me tell you, they have farms, they grow their own food, and that is how they are able to subsist. So going a little further, so now whatever I'm presenting, I'm dividing into 4 parts. One is governance, because I feel governance comes first. If we set everything right inside the house, yeah, or we do excellent with self, then we are able to do good outside. So in that sense, I'll be starting with governance. So this is the GEV's mission, and you can clearly see we have laid out, we talk about the culture and lifestyle of spirituality and sustainability going together. Next slide. This is the vision statement, and we have clearly put out what are the social impact fields that we will be concentrating upon: agriculture, cow care, social and spiritual education, environmental sustainability, yoga, Ayurveda, and healthcare, Devi Varnashram community, and the Vrindavan forest. So it includes biodiversity, it includes all of the aspects when it comes to environmental sustainability, outside with community, the social sustainability, and of course, ultimately, what we are adding towards the economy as such. So these are the green buildings, as what you can see with Govardhan Eco Village. They are all rated 5-star and platinum by IGBC and Griha. These are built by mud blocks. Let me tell you, they use, so the traditional bricks would use 37 kilojoules of energy, and what it uses is 0.37, 1,000th of the kilojoules of energy. So a lot of things when it comes to earning. So not only with the solar I'll be coming a little later also, but green buildings also with mud blocks would bring you a lot of money. This is a picture of the waste management, and I've put out all of the aspects that we take care when it comes to waste. And every day we handle 500 kgs of organic waste, and we convert it into manure. So you can imagine how much wealth is generated out of all of this. We recycle all of the water that we use. So we get additional 4 crore liters of water every year with the water that we are recycling. Yeah. And let me tell you, 4 crore liters is quite a lot of money if we have to bring it from outside. Yeah. Similarly, talking about handling of the animal waste, we handle 350 kgs of animal waste sustainably with the biogas. We get 30 cubic meters of gas every day. That much of gas, LPG, we save. Yeah. Can we go a little further? This is the energy part of it. We have 300 kilowatt of solar power plant. And let me tell you, this decision happened purely based upon the business consideration, because we save 4 to 5 lakhs rupees per month now because we installed solar. Yeah. I'll be meeting him later, to understand more and how we can earn more with a lot of initiatives that we are doing. And of course, a lot of savings that we also do with the efforts everywhere. We are also handling our plastic sustainably. We treat 150 kgs of plastic every day, because that is batch size that we can handle. And we convert it into a diesel, which is a little low quality than the commercial diesel. And we are in rural area. It helps us energy generation when sometimes it becomes difficult in monsoon. Yes. So it is yes. So this particular diesel is actually like diesel. You can mix it with the commercial diesel 50-50, and it can operate in any of the engines and pumps. It doesn't, because we have additional 1 step of filtration that we do with the initial crude diesel that we get. Yeah. And we are using it for years now. This is the butterfly diagram when it comes to the sustainable water management. So we have rainwater harvesting pond, which is 9 crore liters capacity. And this time we have not put plastic lining into it. 9 crore liters. So that is 90 million liters. It's a huge lake. Yeah, it's a huge lake that we have made. Yeah, but because we have not put the lining, it is helping the groundwater recharge. It is black cotton soil that we have used for this purpose. Yeah, but it still keeps interacting. We have done the ramps. It is helping the animals and birds also to approach water. It's not just human beings who have home here, but we have 100 cow family members. We have donkeys, we have horses, we have sheep. We have we have 65 plus species of birds which have been spotted there, 55 plus species of butterflies which are spotted there. It's a complete ecosystem. So this was just the environment part. If we can go a little further, this is the site of the black and gray water treatment happening at the soil biotechnology plant, and it's a garden. And it's a beautiful site, and people spend time there, yeah, when they come to Govardhan Eco Village. Next. Coming to the social part, we are contributing to SDG 1, where we have 3,000 plus farmers connected with us in the organic farming. We help them in the biopesticide and biofertilizer formulation. We have 52 plus varieties of indigenous rice and millets, seed bank collection at Govardhan Eco Village and with the farmers, also into the animal care. Coming to the next, we distributed almost 1 lakh plus free meals during the COVID times. And also annually, we distribute around 2 lakh plus free meals in this particular area. Next. In the healthcare, we have 2,500 plus health camps annually. We have treated 100,000 plus eye patients for that particular matter, and cataracts particularly, and of course a lot into cancer also. We have the tertiary care facility, we have the primary healthcare facility, and we have also the mobile healthcare facilities. This is the quality education that we are talking about, and we have the Gurukul there. We have mobile science and math labs which move around. If we go to the next. We work with women very closely, and particularly in the livelihoods, and we are helping them into training as self-employed professionals. So we have the Govardhan Skills Center, which has come up, which is spread across 70,000 square feet area. And it helps not only to train the youth, but also the women, particularly for that matter. And almost 350 plus women self-help groups are connected with us. This is the picture of the Govardhan Skills Center. And as you could see, 72 plus skills have been chosen to give an overview for the first 6 months. And then in 2-3 skills, they get specialized training as per their interest. I'll go a little further later. We have a fab lab, which was sponsored by DST with us. We have a 3D printer there, and we have a laser cutter there. DST, Department of Science and Technology. And, children are making beautiful materials out of it. Yes. So out of the recycled plastic, they have done very beautiful vases and all of those things. Yeah. So reduced inequalities, we get a lot of international visitors every year, and they love to communicate, connect with the rural community out there. And we have a lot of workshops and a lot of give and take when it comes to art and culture. So regarding the partnerships and collaboration, so this all we have not done by ourselves. It's credit of all of these partners, who have helped either in the sponsorship, or with the community connect, or with the direction setting or policy change, and so on and so forth. Particularly coming to impact investing, there are I'll just cover 2 things in a rapid fire. Can we go a little further? In impact investment, we have started with a section at company, Haribol. And this provides A2 milk, flavored A2 milk for the first time in India, and with pure kesher and vanilla and all of these flavors. A2 flavored milk. Yeah, but the A2 flavored milk. Yeah. So A2 is the the flavored milk. Yeah. So flavored milk, it is first time that we have brought in India, and I'm 100% sure about it. Yeah. We have A2 dahi, we have A2 paneer, and all of those range of organic products out there. So I was talking about GSE. Can we go a little further? Just taking you through a few of the photographs of the GSE that has been built there. Can you see the Fab Lab out there and students experimenting out there? So it's beautiful sight, seeing tribal students, coming and operating a 3D printer, operating a laser cutter. It's beautiful. So we are not stopping at it. We understand that we also have responsibility towards the next gen sustainability leaders building what exactly Professor Raghunathan has mentioned here. And we have action learning program where students from high school to university, from India and abroad, they come and participate in all of the programs which are happening at Govardhan Eco Village. And we take them through, understanding the complex challenges that we are facing. We take them through the stakeholder interactions. We get them to interact with the youth and understand their challenges. We get them to interact with families, which completely changes their perspective altogether. So we can imagine what SROI would be if even one of them becomes that sensitized leader leading a multinational corporation. So that's exactly what we call as the SROI. But there are, of course, a lot of challenges when it comes to ESG particularly. We struggle with the pay equalities, diversity, labor standards, and all of those. But of course, we are working upon that too. In terms of governance, the risk management is something that pandemic has given a very hard lesson. So risk management is something that we have to work upon, and succession planning, of course. Next. There is no customized framework for NGOs at this particular point of time when it comes to ESG, and funding partners are insisting upon ESG data collection and giving the impact assessment, qualitative, quantitative, covering that with a limited resource that we have. Do we focus on action or do we focus on reporting? That's it. Yeah. So that's it from my side.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aditi. And it is really wonderful to know about what Eco Village is doing. And also very wonderful to know that you are combining spirituality plus sustainability. So that's something I haven't seen before. So thank you so much for your response. And my next question is to Mr. Ashok Imani. Why should ESG be embedded in banks in the context of investment professionals, and what is socially responsible investing?
Thank you, Prashant. And I will not stay put here between you and lunch. I will quickly wind up. But excellent speakers before me who have made my job very easy, starting from Arnav and Minaji and Aditi and also sir. So here, I will just quickly tell you, in terms of why the E&S risk, in terms of the risk and opportunity framework is very important, and how that will lead for any of the banking and financial institution, the core to adopt. And I will take some classic examples which I have been encountering in my experience of dealing with the investments which we have done over the last couple of years. So the risk and opportunity framework lays a very good, in terms of when you have to identify the ESG risks, right? In terms of be it environment, social, or governance risk, in order to ensure that your proceeds are going in the right direction, right? Without compromising on any of the factors which are going to impact the returns.
True.
And the important thing is, like, we are like the role which we are in, we have to manage the funds which we receive from institutional investors who believed in the thesis, and then they invest into the particular banking and financial institution. So if a professional is not able to comprehend the risks associated with any of the investment. I will take a couple of investments Mr. Garg has pointed out on cement, or Arnav's renewable energy project, like the solar project, and in terms of what are the risks which are involved, what a particular investment professional needs to look at when they are processing the investment, when they are doing the appraisal, right? And these are the issues which are going to decide the flow of your capital, right? And these are the ones which will tell you, like, in terms of the returns on your investment. And the topmost is the reputation of any of the firm which is going to do this, in terms of the not addressing the risk. And in terms of environment, social, I will take the example of solar power plant first. Like, we all say it's very good, it's going to reduce the carbon footprint, so much of emissions will be reduced in terms of, like, if we go business as usual, like non a coal-based thermal power plant. In lieu of that, if we are setting up a big utility scale solar plant, it is very good. And we technologically we have advanced. So many technologies have come which are maximizing the radiance which is available in a area, and generating so many units. But from the environment and environment point of view, I will take this example, like health and safety aspects are integral part of environment, right? So in terms of the safety aspect, so many fires are happening with the climate change taking up. And the modules are made up of heavy metals, cadmium, right? And other stuff which is going into it. So what happens when a solar panel catches fire with the heightened climate change which we have seen in your presentation? What happens? We are these modules catch fire, and if you are not having proper safety mechanisms built in, right, you will be losing so many modules in a split of a second and catching fire. Not only that, after that, what happens, like in terms of the waste which is coming out of it, it is all powdered ash form, and it has got the heavy metal, the cadmium, right? And with the rains which are going to happen afterwards, you are leaching the cadmium into the ground as well as into the nearby water bodies. Absolutely. Right? So what will happen? This will contaminate the pristine water resources which are there under the aquifers and all. So until unless you think through the liabilities which are going to come out, right, you are not able to, like, you may be getting $7.5 per CER, but at the same time you have to think of addressing these issues. And the professional who is processing the investment, he has to think through. And our role is to prod the investment team to think through all this, right? In a road project, In a road project, say it is like 80 kilometers, 100 kilometers road project, it is properly evaluated by ESC of the MOEFCC, and they have given the mitigation plans and all. But until unless you look it in a holistic manner in terms of what is the impact of that road on the biodiversity, what is the fragmentation impacting the wildlife sanctuary which is passing, like which the road bifurcates. And if you are not looked at the critical habitat assessment and thought of like what needs to be done, I have couple of road projects which I had encountered, like in terms of intermittently, like they were not made into 4 lane or 6 lane because of these issues, and the stakeholders who were very vociferous in raising their voice on protection of the wildlife. And you as a professional, investment professional, will be losing on that. Your time and cost overruns, which will be huge, will be impacting, right? In terms of how until unless you think of that, and immediately in your process of appraising the investment, if you are not looking at these issues, you will be like triggering later on the liabilities which will come up, right? Petroleum storage tanks, again the issue of leachates which may be getting into the ground, and once it is into the ground, it is all over, right? So in terms of when Arnav said our renewable energy projects fantastic, we are not adding any emissions which was the major cause, like in terms of polluting the air and water uh, from the regular thermal power plants. We in solar plants have to think through it, and we have to bring that into our valuation. And until unless we do that, we will not be able to address the issues. And until unless you are doing that, you will not be able to get funds from your institutional investors later on. Like you have to keep on, it's not just 1,000 2,000 megawatt, you have to enhance it to 5 gigawatts, 10 gigawatts, like you have your targets. And for that to fructify, you need funds, and international investors are looking for it. So access to capital happens if your teams are looking at these issues. It's not the ES team or like the environment and social members of your investment team who would be responsible. It is the responsibility of everyone who is handling those funds, right? They should appreciate the value brought by by looking at all E&S aspects. Then only it can be integrated and taken up. The triple bottom line, which Minaji you have pointed out, I've written that like in terms of why I need to speak on that. It's important. Like you have to look at socially acceptable projects. Consent to operate is something which is very important. Like consent to operate from environmental point of view, sir, and consent to operate from the social point of view. Until unless you apply the ESG lens, you will not be able to find out. And these minute details are very important to integrate, right? So in terms of access, return on the investments, and like in terms of the reputation is one thing which nobody can, once like you lose it, your company's name will always be coming out, right? Infosys, PIT got like insider trading by one employee, but every time you are told like Infosys or your XYZ company had this issue, board issue or something. So if you are going to integrate all these aspects into your investment appraisal process, you will be able to then address all these aspects, like reputation, your foremost priority, then access to capital, and then returns on the investment, which will automatically happen, as Arnav has said, like you have got 7.5 per CR. So that's how I feel it should be taken out.
Thank you very much for your insightful response. And with this, we have ended our round two. And once again, I would like to thank all our speakers for your time. And now we will open the session for our audience. Given the time, it's lunch time, so maybe we can quickly take 3 questions from the audience. And please, I would request, please limit your question to the ESG topic only.
There.
Maybe rating, maybe Spandan would like to answer this question.
Is there any rating higher given for methaneous conversions to carbon credits vis-a-vis carbon to carbon credits?
Quite technical, to be honest. And the thing is, like I said, there is no consistent methodology, irrespective of whatever rating or score that you are looking at. I think it will depend on kind of which rating agency that you approach and the context of the project as well, right? Are you looking at fundraising for that particular project? I'm sure kind of the larger the impact that you have through that process, I think it might lead to a slightly improved scoring on that. But overall, when you're looking at the existing ratings out there, they traditionally look at, or right now look at an organization level with different kind of, let's say, focus and kind of different weightage across the ESG spectrum. So I don't think there's any specific answer, or I can point to that, okay, for your particular kind of conversion or the process, you will get a higher rating or Dow Jones versus Sustainalytics or some third matrix or a third rating agency. But overall, I think it will be a bit more of a project specific assessment that you might have to look into, particularly if you are looking at raising funds, because they'll then, if let's say a particular rating agency is giving a lot more weightage to the environmental score, and even within environment, we've looked at, right, a lot of us have spoken that there's multiple aspects. There's water, there's kind of waste, there's biodiversity, there's reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So if that particular rating agency gives a lot more weightage to that reducing greenhouse gas emissions aspect within the E spectrum, it might mean that you are potentially able to get a slightly higher score, but it's super kind of let's say arbitrary at this point in time, and we'll have to kind of look at that particular or a particular rating agency that you might have in mind if you were to approach them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Spandan. You want to add?
Yeah, I think just to add to what Spandan has said, I think your question was around if there are different kind of carbon credits, right? So carbon credit generated by a utility scale solar project compared to a carbon credit issued by a mining company, their impact on the environment and the social impact, since it is going to be different, the rating or the price it can fetch in the market will be higher. So say if I go to a village in a tribal area, and we do decentralized solar to supply power to the entire village, right? And we use LEDs in every household, and use biogas to make food. So the carbon credit will be generated there compared to a carbon credit generated by a utility scale solar project is very different. So if in today's market I can get a $5, $6, $7 for a carbon credit generated by utility scale project, a carbon credit in a tribal area with LEDs and decentralized solar biogas can fetch $100.
Oh,
That is the demand.
you can see all of the money lying there.
Yeah, and there is a big demand for these carbon credits, but there's not much supply. But then again, it will take you some time to quantify that and establish, or rather prove that what social impact it has had, what is the carbon reduction it has contributed towards. So but I think once you go through that process, you understand it better, you improve upon it. But yes, there is a big demand, and there are different kind of ratings for the different carbon credits generated by different industries.
Thank you. Anyone would like to add? Yeah. Would you like to add?
There, last.
Yeah. Next question, please.
Hello. Good afternoon, all of you. So my question is, what can be done in terms of capacity development of SEBI or other regulatory agencies so that the monitoring of ESG compliance can be better, not only in terms of forceful obligation, but a positive education and partial. So as indicated by Raghunathan ma'am.
I don't know enough about SEBI's capacity. Maybe Mr. Garg is a better person to answer that.
Yeah.
I think I made this little remark slightly off the cuff, saying that they've asked 1,000 listed companies, top 1,000 listed companies, to comply with their BRSR norms on ESG. And I said they probably don't have the capacity. So independent auditor, not the chartered accountant, but an independent auditor who is trained for that, for ESG, has to be employed, or a certified person has to come in. So you see, the government body's capacity cannot be enhanced beyond a point. Capacity in the sense they can delegate or outsource. Even if you see the environment impact assessment reports, that is done by other organization. Then it goes to their technical wing. Then it goes to their for the environment clearance, it goes to the higher body, which is headed by the minister in the center, and in the state there's something called SIA, which handles that. So capacity, of course, they will learn. They will definitely, they are vibrant organizations. They will enhance their capacity, but in a limited sense of employees and the things associated with that. I think the next step would be delegation to certain professionals. Now, how to maintain the quality of those professionals would be an issue with them. I think they'll come out with some regulation on that, how to regulate the standards of those professionals on reporting on ESG. That's my take.
Yes, sir. And I mean, how can we teach industries or educate industries about it's that it is as it is indicated that it's not a should not be a forceful obligation. It's your duty, it's your responsibility to do this as a integral organization, and in that sense.
You want me to answer?
You want me to? Yeah, very good question. The first one, what I think is like the standards needs to be defined, right? In terms of so much has happened so fast. Like we have different standards everywhere. All these needs to be brought together, and particular consolidation needs to happen now in order to achieve our ambition which we have set for ourselves, right? For the economy. The other part which I feel is like, as you know, like 2006 onwards, we have been taking the journey on entire ESG, like environment, social, economic aspects, reporting and all. So it's all started voluntarily, voluntary NVG guidelines, which came in 2006. Later on, as Spandan also has articulated, became like it went to various phases. BRR was the last phase, and then BRSR. And at this moment of time, like as Mr. Garg has pointed out, it is like SEBI had mandated for 1,000 companies, listed companies. But in next couple of the news is like it could happen that everyone has to now take up to BRSR reporting. If that happens, you are bound to keep like looking at all these indicators which are to be reported from your industry, like relevant to your industry. If it is a waste to energy plant, or transportation and collection and transportation of waste, or whatever it may be, right? So that is something which will guide. Already conscious businesses, responsible businesses are doing that, in terms of even if they are not required to comply with BRSR, they have adopted it, and they are putting in frameworks which will help them to identify the issues pertaining to their aspects. And with the government's in terms of directions which are coming on circular economy, that's something which will bring everybody into the fold. Nobody will escape. And circular economy, like, you have to really work on it and get things in line with the ambition which government has set in. So I think that that's the way it has to be taken up. Yeah,
Thank
this is.
Not my area particularly, but as far as I know, with few of the connects, social stock exchange would also come up. Particularly, yes, it has been notified. So, wow. Yeah, BSC will host it, is what I understand. Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's some standards for the social auditors as well. So you can list your now on that and raise some funds for that.
Carrots, sticks, and education.
Very aptly put.
And a healthy competition also. In that sense.
Okay, thank you very much. Last question, please. Yeah, please. Could you please use the mic, please?
ESG reporting is voluntary, basic, right? So are there any mechanisms to check remotely the accuracy of the reportings that have been done?
Not at this stage. The thing is, as I think Sir also mentioned at the start, right now it's just kind of mandatory. There is no requirement as such to get it audited or sense checked by any third party. But I think like Mr. Ashok mentioned, that the trend is likely that the mandate and the remit of the legislation will increase. I think in due course, there will also be a requirement for the reporting to be eventually audited, right? Because the idea is, just like you are reporting your financial, balance sheet, profit and loss account and cash flow, which is being audited. I think the ESG kind of matrix will also kind of follow that trend. But what is also increasingly happening is a lot of these global multinationals. So you pick up the impact report of Diageo, or you pick up the impact report of some other global multinational. They have already started auditing some elements of their impact report through an independent third party, which gives it a bit more sense of assurance as well as kind of authenticity. And I think that trend will eventually drill down, and not just for the large organizations. So if you look at some of the biggest organizations like Unilever, right, what they have said is by 2030 they would like all of their suppliers to reduce their carbon footprint by 55%, I think. Now, even if you are a small and medium scale enterprise but are supplying to Unilever, for Unilever to confirm that yes, 100% of our suppliers have met that target in some form, not on an annual basis, but maybe as a surprise visit, there are audits happening on human rights, on child labor, that kind of sense of verification will be required eventually. So I mean, it's as an accountant, I think we will all be very, very busy going forward, as a lot more companies look at kind of, a voluntary disclosing the data, but also for getting a more assurance and kind of validity when others people, third parties are looking at it, will try to in some form get their data verified and audited in a way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite our chair once again for his closing remark. Sir, you have the floor.
I think I'm now between the lunch, and so to just sum up, it has been very interesting and very, a lot of inputs, a lot of knowledge has come even to me. Like I was not aware of few aspects. I was not aware of what the Govardhan Eco Village is doing, and I was not aware of the rate of the carbon credit also, to be honest. So, and that's fantastic. So it must be few people might be thinking like that's a business opportunity, but they have to work hard. It's not so simple as it looks hearing from him. It's very complicated process, and so ESG is not a fad. It's not a passing phenomenon. It has come. We have to address that in whatever capacity we're there, and it's good for the society. And when we say top 1,000 listed companies, even if we take just top 100 companies which are listed on BSE, or I don't know which stock exchange they will take, or take the combined listing. So if they do it, because if the pollution is happening, if the environment is being affected, then these are the top 1,000 companies in this country. And there may be a few companies which are not listed, because recently I saw that Vedanta delisted itself. So the Vedanta is a huge group in all kind of activities, business activities. So it's a way forward, and definitely the systems will evolve further. It's not going to stop it here, because I thought that what SEBI has done is a very drastic step, and they became pioneers in all the financial sector regulators by announcing this kind of a mandatory requirement, because FCA or SEC, they didn't, to the best of my knowledge, subject to correction, they don't have this kind of a mandatory requirement. So SEBI did a huge step, but if you take a huge step, you need to be supported by technical people, or some kind of mechanism, systems have to be in place. So this has been a very, I would thank all the panelists, and they brought a different perspective on the table, and I believe that it would have been very knowledgeable, and people who are in this sector would have enhanced their knowledge. And I thank all of you also to listening patiently. I think after this, there's nothing between you and us for the lunch.
Thank you very much, sir. And on behalf of Dr. Nisha Kohli, founder of CorpStage, I would like to also thank Mr. Burman and Dr. Rambuj. And once again, thank you all the distinguished speakers and our audience for your time today. And I'm sure before we go for lunch, we have some necessary food for thoughts also on the ESG. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the remaining sessions of this conference on sustainability. Thank you.
And great job by Prashant.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aditi. Thank you. Thank you.
A lot of coordination there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day and the conference. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. You're at